Good evening. So I want to look at two songs, or the words to two of the songs that we sing. I'm going to title this lesson, with apologies to Charles Dickens, A Tale of Two Songs. And these two songs are number 76 and number 250. You can keep your songbook open if you have it, or grab it off the back of the pew, because we're going to make reference to the lyrics that are found in these two songs. So what you might do is take one of them, leave one of them open, and then put the little bookmark on the other one. So 76. That there are certainly different emphases that are placed on each one, and I always kind of like to look at the date that they're written. You know, to think about some of the ways that these songs have had such a long history. Look at this number 250 that's written in 1792. And so this message of fellowship with other Christians, of this connection that we have with other Christians. And of course, number 76 was always a favorite song of mine when I was very young. This songbook adds two verses that I had never seen before. Now, that probably just has to do with the version of the songbook that I had, but the last two verses are not in a lot of song, the words. So you can kind of just think about how indeed blessed was the tie that they felt to one another in those times, and we certainly should feel as well today. Blessed be the tie that binds our hearts in Christian love, the first line says. The fellowship of kindred minds is like to that above. This one who finds his bosom glow with love. I just love the way some of those songs are written back then. I mean, maybe sometimes we have to get out the dictionary and figure out what some of the words are from some of those old times. Like we just sang about the gird and one, you know. But this description here of this bind that we have, and that's something that's consistent with what we find in Colossians. We love the second greatest commandment, that we love one another as ourselves. And he's not talking about emotion, he's talking about decision. That we decide to do things that are for the benefit of others. And we can think about a number of different places in the Bible where it's emphasizing the importance of our actions toward others, that's founded and based on this principle of really caring about what other people need, rather than about the conduct that we have. In fact, it begins with the idea of us, the chapter begins with this idea of us making ourselves as a living sacrifice. I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, wholly acceptable to God, which is your reasonable service. And do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove. There are principles set forth, and then there's application to conduct. So if we look down here in verse 9 of this same chapter, he says, let love be without hypocrisy. Abhor what is evil, cling to what is good. Now, we can, if we stop just a minute and think about that idea of love, can be hypocritical. It can be pretended. Love is not all, hypocrisy is not all, may not necessarily, it may not be that somebody's doing something that they said don't do. It may simply be that they are pretending something that's not real. So when he says, and the word hypocrite was actually an actor. It was used of people that are on stage. They were hypocrites. That has an application, but we'll leave that alone. But I'm saying, when we think about what they're doing, is they're pretending to be something that they're scary movies. And he always played the bad guy, you know. And he said he was constantly having people that would see him in public, and they're just terrified of him because he's played these bad guys for so long. And some of the guys that played the bad guys were some of the nicest guys that there are. They just knew how to play a bad guy. Maybe they had a face for it, you know. And the same thing's true of the other. Sometimes the ones that you think are really, oh, well, I like this. It doesn't need to be pretended. It needs to be that we really do care about other people, and especially when we think about their relationship with God. So he says, and he follows that up with, abhor what is evil, cling to what is good. Be kindly affectioned one to another, be kindly affectionate one to another with brotherly love. We talk about the two different kinds of love. Verse 9 is the agape love. Verse 10 is the phileo love. Be kindly affectionate to one another. It may be more of an expectation, and he's directing this particularly among brethren, but he's saying that this is the way it certainly should be. In honor, then, he says, giving preference to one another, not lacking in diligence, fervent in spirit, serving the Lord, rejoicing in hope, patient in tribulation, continuing steadfastly in prayer, distributing. Emphasizes this in the concept of it about not thinking of ourselves more importantly than we do of others, that we should be focused on the needs of others. We should be thinking about what's really going to be best for them. And of course, that's the idea that he's expressing there as he's talking about this principle of thinking about what are the needs of others. If any fellowship of the Spirit, if any affection and mercy, fulfill my joy by being like-minded, having the same love, being of one accord and of one mind. Let nothing be done through selfish ambition or conceit, but in lowliness of mind let each esteem others better than himself. Let each of you look out, not for his own interest, but also for the interests of others. Let this mind be in you. He humbled himself and become obedient to the point of death, even the death of the cross. And so we think about what Jesus did. We're Christians. We're followers of Christ. We can't even come close to what he did for us. But what was his motivation? What was his motivation for doing that? We think about this description here in these songs when he's saying that it is the tie that binds. It's the glue that holds us together to help be able to be what God expects us to be. For Ephesians chapter 4 and verse 16, in the context of describing, I almost consider this one of the best contexts for describing the whole body joined and knit together through what every joint supplies. And there's many places in the Bible that God breaks it down. The Apostle Paul often, for example, in 1 Corinthians chapter 12, where he's talking about the body and the different roles that we have. There were some that were unique to their time before they had the New Testament, that was before they had the written word, that it was the message that was given, the miracles that were according to the effective working by which every part does its share, causes the growth of the body for the edifying of itself in love. And this edifying is building up. So he's saying there's the building up here, as it's a matter of people caring about each other, really wanting what's best for each other. And we also find some other things in these songs. Actually, this is where we want to focus on now in our tale of two songs, when he says, the fellowship of kindred minds is like to that above. The kindred minds. Now, it is a brotherhood, but he's also, I think, as he's describing fellowship is not eating and drinking. Fellowship is a common bond. It is particularly a sharing and the brotherhood in Christ. 1 Corinthians chapter 1 and verse 10, and you can think about this because many of you are very well learned Bible students. You know that the book of 1 Corinthians is one that is probably one of the most corrective books. That you all speak the same thing, that there be no divisions among you, but that you be perfectly joined together in the same mind and the same judgment. Now that doesn't mean that everybody is going to have exactly the same idea about everything that's going on. But it does mean that what unites us is because we're accepting the one mind of Christ. That's divide me with my brethren. the things that we have together, that we share in common, that because of our confidence and trust in God and His Word, that we say, this is what the Bible says, and we can come together on that. We may have other things in life. They had a lot of differences in Corinth from the Jews and the Gentiles and the people that had backgrounds of a number of things. In fact, much of it is addressed to them being able to work. The book goes on to say there's going to be ways that they look at the eating of meats and such differently. But what are they perfected together in? In the things that are coming from God. That they can say, this is what brings us together. And we need to celebrate that. Notice also in verse 2 of Blessed Be the Tie, number 76. Again, maybe sometimes we focus on the things that maybe we have different judgments on, but we need to recognize what we have as Christians to be united together instead of divided. And that was, of course, a big problem in the first century, but it was something that was addressed in a number of places. And Jesus prayed about it in John chapter 17 and verse 21. Verse 20 say, but for them also that believe on me through their word. So who's he talking about? Us. And of those, he says, that they may all be one, even as you, Father, are in me, and I in you, that they also may be one in us, that the world may believe that you sent me. And I think there's an implication there that when there's not that, no, realistically, but that should be that we strive for that we take on, is even as we sing. And is there anybody in here that's never sang Blessed Be the Tie? Raise your hand if you've never sung Blessed Be the Tie. You don't think you've ever sang it? Really? Okay. I didn't see any other hand go up. You may be the only one. Of chapter 250, song number 250. Good luck finding chapter 250 anywhere in the Bible, but of how sweet, how heavenly, when free from envy, scorn, and pride, our wishes all above, each can his brother's failings hide and show a brother's love. Now, there is that. And that is the reference to the need for us to share each other's burdens. Going back to number 76, I told you need to keep a finger there, right? Go back and forth a little bit. So number 76, when he says in verse 3, we share our mutual woes, our mutual burdens bear, and often for each other flows the sympathizing tear. If we go to number 250, we'll notice in verses 2 and 3 that this is emphasized. When each can feel his brother's sigh and with him bear a part, when sorrow flows from eye to eye and joy from heart to heart. When free from envy, scorn, and pride, our wishes all above, each can his brother's failings hide and show a brother's love. These are some now, but we have each other, not just God, which is of course most important, but we have each other. Colossians 3 and verse 12 says, therefore, as the elect of God, holy and beloved, put on tender mercies, kindness, humility, meekness, long-suffering, bearing with one another and forgiving one another. If anyone has a complaint, even as Christ forgave you, for Romans chapter 12 in verse 10, be kindly affectionate to one another with brotherly love and honor, prefer in giving preference to one another, not lagging in diligence, fervent in spirit, serving the Lord. And Galatians 6 and verse 2, bear one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ. All right, so I'd like us to sing number 250. We're going to come back to a few other thoughts. No soul, how sweet, how heavenly is the sight when those that love the Lord in one another's peace delight, and so fulfill the word. When each can fill his brother's sigh, and weary from envy scorn and pride, our wishes all above. Each can his brother's failings hide and show a brother's love. When love in one delightful stream through every bosom flows, that binds the happy souls above. And he's an heir of heaven who finds his bosom glow with love. Oh. I did have it up there. I forgot I'd put it in there. Sorry. The last three verses of "Blessed be the tie," and the fourth verse was familiar to me, but 5 and 6 I'd never seen till this songbook. But these last three verses really deal with how we deal with death. And when we asunder part, it gives us inward pain. But we shall still be joined in heart and hope to meet again. This glorious hope revives our courage by the way, while each in expectation lives and longs to see the day. From sorrow, toil, and pain, and sin, my Uncle John, who is about 90 years old, and went up and said a few words. He went up there weeping in front of the group yesterday at the funeral. And he gets kind of silly to help himself deal with uncomfortable situations, so he's kind of joking around a little bit. And then he turned around to the casket. With you soon, yeah. I love you, baby. I'll be with you soon. You know, I don't know, 60-something years they were married. But do you think about the things that are said in the Bible about our hope beyond this life that help us to deal with that? As 1 Thessalonians 4 and verse 13, it says, I do not want you to be ignorant, brethren, concerning those who have fallen asleep, lest you sorrow as the others. And to be honest about it, I don't know how people do manage it without hope. Especially when they're losing people that they're dear to. I try to put myself in the position of people that really think this is all there is, just to think about what they're dealing with when they lose somebody and they think that's the end of things. I mean, it's hard enough when we know we're not going to have them here anymore. Revelation 21 and verse 4, it says, and God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There shall be no more death, nor sorrow, nor crying. There shall be no pain, for the former things have passed away. What a wonderful thing. Sometimes, and I recognize that sometimes because of the person that we lose, sometimes for them in particular, we don't necessarily have the same hope. I mean, there are people that we care about that we lose that we don't. I mean, and it wasn't just that I was missing her. It was because I was old enough to know about her eternal situation, and it is hard. So those things, when he says there's no sorrow nor crying, I don't know exactly how God's going to do that. People have speculated, well, he'll just kind of make us forget about people, or maybe it'll be how he's going to do that. I leave that to him. But I trust that that's the way it's going to be. Let's go ahead and sing number 76, and I'll remember I have it on the slides now. Domi, blessed be and dread minds is like to that above before our Father's throne we pour our ardent prayers, our fears, our hopes, ours, we share our muse mutual woes, our mutual burdens bear, and often for each other flows the sympathizing, but we shall still be joined in heart and hope to meet again. This glorious hope revives our courage by the day. From sorrow, toil, and pain, and sin we shall be free, and perfect love and friendship reign through all words of these songs. I hope as we sing all of our songs that we'll think about what we're singing. We may occasionally have to say, I don't know if I agree with what's being written here, but I think that many times it's more a matter of us. We can even read the words and not even think about what we're singing, and we should be getting things out of that, and I appreciate that. I also appreciate the young man who's probably going to be a really good song leader sometime. On to the invitation. The song is a reference to the prodigal son, and this may be not, it may be of all the songs that we sing, it may be as much as any applying to those who have obeyed the gospel and have let other things interfere with their relationship with God and need to make some changes and a repentance toward God. But it certainly fits one who's not obeyed the